Um, Hello, everyone. I think we have 3 minutes to be able to start. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We will be able to start on our call. I hope everyone can be able to hear in. So other participants that have not yet joined in will be able to start, and then they can find us on the way. Thank you very much for responding to the call to join into this workshop on leadership and resource mobilization for registrar generals and senior management leadership. I will start by first providing some housekeeping rules, which we will be able to follow throughout these 3 days. We anticipate that we'll be able to run 2 hours every day from today until Thursday, and we'll keep this as engaging as possible. So please feel free to share any feedback with us on areas we can improve and or areas that you feel that you need further, 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 further assistance. So for the housekeeping rules, we'll request that all of us stay muted, and especially unless you are the one speaking. And then you can be able to raise your hand or write a comment if you're not in position to raise your hand. Other participants can be able to listen into other languages, that is from French and Portuguese. There is a translation button just below, so you can select a language of your choice. Those that want to listen to French and Portuguese and also English, you are in position to select a language of your preference. And then we'll have polls that will be running throughout the presentations or throughout the 3 days. We'll be informing you when the first polls will be coming in, and would request that you engage in as much as you can. And we'll give about 30 seconds for you to select, and we'll also show the results of the polls. So without further ado, I would like to first of all provide to start off our call today, and I will welcome William, who is our Chief of Demography and Social Statistics at the ECA, and Annette. William will be moderating this workshop, and also we will come in as and when necessary. So I welcome William to provide our welcome remarks and also to welcome Annette to provide further a welcome statement. Over to you, William.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rosa. Thank you, everybody, for responding so positively. Let me start off with the protocols. The director generals, the senior management who are in this meeting, and all the development partners and our partners who have made this workshop possible. So I wish to welcome you all colleagues from the various civil registration offices across the African continent. It has been a long time since we engaged at this level, and I'm happy that we are engaging once again. This workshop was supposed to have been taken place a year ago in Kigali, Rwanda, if you still remember. But unfortunately, it was at the time when the COVID-19 pandemic hit. So it foiled our plans to have the RG meeting in between COM5 and COM6. We are actually happy that it is now happening, although we are now closer to COM6, left with a couple of months. So we have now felt that it is quite essential that we no longer postpone this meeting or workshop indefinitely. And as you remember, it was supposed to be a substantive and an administrative meeting where we were supposed to look at some of the issues affecting, the formation of the statutory body, which has to coordinate the activities of civil registrar officers and so forth. So now that we have found a way of actually doing it virtually, we hope that we'll still achieve the same results. Initially, also, it was meant to be a 1-week workshop, but now we are trying to do it in 3 days. And within those 3 days, we have actually sort of contracted it to just about 2.5 hours per day. Let me also begin by applauding you for the immense work that you have undertaken during the COVID-19 pandemic. You remember when the pandemic started, we had an engagement which assessed the responses of various civil registration offices, and the results have actually widely been disseminated. We know for sure that civil registration of events has continued, although at times in a limited way. But one essential thing which we need to mention is that you have managed to demonstrate that civil registration or registration of vital events is an essential service. I think this is a mark which we need to applaud ourselves on, that we have really managed to assert ourselves as an essential service. In the same vein, let me also applaud, the frontline workers in civil registration offices who are scattered all over the continent. They've done immense work. From the early days of the pandemic, they've committed to register vital events around the clock, working odd hours, online, remotely, and in shifts. Some are even working out of mobile offices, even as they've innovated and struggled to do their jobs the best way they can. The challenge of not being able to work normally has resulted in glaring gaps in the registration of vital events in some countries. So the issues to think about now is, how do we actually close those gaps where there have been a backlog of vital events which need to be registered? For today, we are gathered here to discuss very two important issues: leadership and resource mobilization. And definitely, as leaders, we should embrace change. So we are looking at these two issues from a change management, which is required, and we cannot continue to do business as usual, where we depend on the slow, passive, and reactive systems that depend on in-person attendance. As you know, registrar generals and senior managers, we actually wait for informants to come into our offices, inform us about the vital event, whether it be a birth, a death, a marriage, adoption, and so forth. But is that the most efficient way which we should be working? Should we be waiting for these clients to walk into our offices? What we need is to build systems that are dynamic, interoperable, resilient, proactive, and agile. We should lead in transforming the civil registration systems do their business in about 4 ways. Firstly, civil registration systems and vital statistics that are generated must be strengthened as core components of the building back and building forward as a result of what we have learned during the COVID-19 pandemic. Civil registration must be recognized as an essential service, and we have seen that a couple of countries have actually responded to that. So service provision, even during prolonged lockdown, becomes, part of the work which we do. Then the second part is we need to harness the potential of technology as we do our work. In Africa, the potential of mobile phones is increasing the operational efficiency of registration systems. Digital technology with extensive use of mobile devices in Africa has incomparable opportunities for driving the work which we do in civil registration and ID management. Digitalization of the processes from notification to certification in a one-stop measure will convert civil registration from these passive systems to proactive systems. Then fourthly, we need to build interoperable systems. And in some countries, we have started discussing the issue of establishing national population registers. And this is an efficient way which we can account for people from the time they are born to the time they exit through death. And we have seen that this is possible. Countries in Asia and the Pacific have managed to, or have started to build national population registers. So we should actually think in Africa, should we also be following suit? Distinguished colleagues, on resource mobilization, I want to repeat what I said to the ministers of finance just yesterday in the current ongoing conference of ministers. As I speak, this conference is actually reaching towards its end, and they are working on resolutions. And one of the proposals which we put in there was that legal identities like birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates, and any other legal certificate are public goods, and hence they need to be funded from the government fiscus. We are advocating for public financing, which we call domestic financing of civil registration, and the ministers of finance have embraced the idea. They see the value of people having identities, legal identities, and the birth certificate is the foundation. So we have actually managed to push in the resolution to that effect. Secondly, as the world is embracing technology, we should move with that. eCRVS will be a term you will hear a lot about from today, and it will guide the innovation and digitalization of CRVS systems. The other strategies which will guide our work as we go forward will be integration and decentralization. So we should endeavor to lead in these strategies. We need to be the change we want to be. So we invited you to come with your senior managers here, as there's need for building a critical mass in any establishment to drive this change. That's why we are concentrating on the leadership. So I'm quite hopeful that after this workshop, we should be looking at how to transform our civil registration offices, and we'll be leaders in that endeavor. So let me conclude with these few words. I wish you a very successful workshop. Thank you. Over to you, Jose.
William, I think it is you to, Annette is coming in next.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Annette Forsingdal. I'm from the Center of Excellence for CVS System, and we based in Ottawa in Canada. So the Center of Excellence would like to join UNICA in welcoming you to this workshop. We're very excited about co-hosting, and we sincerely hope that it will gonna be a good learning experience for all of us. One of the strategic objectives of the Center of Excellence is to create global but also regional platform for learning and knowledge sharing within the field of civil registration. As William has already said, this workshop has been long underway. In fact, almost 2 years. And on the way, we have had long discussion about how can we do this best. From the beginning, we knew that we wanted to create an inspirational platform for sharing of experiences. We wanted to do something new, and we wanted a workshop that was specifically tailor-made for you, the registered generals and senior management in civil registration. We all know how important leadership is, and we have seen tremendous leaderships from many of you during the pandemic, and we thank everybody that has allowed us to document your successes. Many of you have taken very innovative approaches to mitigate the impact of the pandemic on your system, and we are hopeful that by setting focus on leadership, that we will spark a conversation as well as thought about the importance of leadership in civil registration. So during this workshop, we really want, and also afterwards, as we continue the conversation, we would like to encourage you to talk about and reflect about what it takes to make change as a leader in civil registration, but also how we as leaders can inspire our stakeholders to understand how important civil registration system and vital statistic included is for government service, production, and statistics. And this is where the importance, and this is a very important part of the resource mobilization. In this workshop, we will share some theory with you, but more importantly, we will share stories and experiences, listen to some of the great leaders, and showcase countries that has reformed their civil registration systems. In a moment, we're going to hear from 3 registered generals, what has inspired them as leaders, and some of the skills that they have put in place to reform their civil registration system. We really hope and believe by sharing each other's story that we will inspire each other as well. So as an extension of this, if you are, we are very interested, as I said, to document and portray profiles of exceptional leaders within civil registration in Africa. So we would like to invite you to nominate leaders in civil registration so we can interview them and share the interviews with you. My colleague is now posting our email in the chat. So if you would like to nominate something that inspires you or has inspired you, please write their name, country, and a very brief motivation, and we can take contact to you. This is, of course, something that we're doing together with UNICA, but also together with our partner, Vital Strategies. So with these few words, I would like to wish you all a very good workshop, and I hope it's going to be fruitful. And back to Hosea. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Annette. I think let's have the first poll now, and then we can proceed on to. I'll hand over to William to do the introduction of the leadership accounts, and proceed to the next phase. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Rosa. On your screens, you can see there is a poll which is showing. Please, can you quickly complete it? Then we move on to the next session. Just 30 seconds will be enough. Please, can you complete? So the question is, how old were you when your birth was registered? We just want to actually see from the group here. Thanks, the results are actually showing that 55% indicated that they were less than a year old. So which means 45% of us got our birth registered after the first year of our life. And interestingly, 32% got their birth certificates when they were actually 18 years old. That's almost a third of us. So you can actually imagine. Thank you. Let's proceed. So we are going to go to the next session, which will lead us into the leadership. And we'll hear accounts from 4 countries: Senegal, Angola, Rwanda, and Sierra Leone. So I will call upon Mr. Aliyu Osamen Sar from from the Civil Registration Office of Senegal to give us a synopsis of his experience as a leader in the Civil Registration Office in Senegal. Can we have Aliyu on the podium, please? And can also Angola and Rwanda, Dr. Kavukila and Ms. Josephine Mkesha prepare? Also, Mr. Masokwai of Sierra Leone, please prepare. Over.
William, for Rwanda, it is going to be Stephen representing Madam Mukesh.
Hello, is Mr. Aliyu joined? Sorry, I was also kicked out of the. I've just reconnected. Can we go on to the next? Dr. Kavukila, is he around? Rosa, can you check? Oh, Dr. Kavukila.
Yes. Por favor, falar em português, talvez.
I am going to speak in Portuguese.
Okay.
Hello. Can Angola go ahead? It seems we have problems with Angola also. Can we move to Rwanda? Miss Mkesha, is she connected?
Hello. Yes, this is Bujengo Stephen. It's not Mukesha Josephine. Can you hear me?
Okay. Thank you so much. We can hear you loud and clear. Please, can you go ahead? You have about 6 minutes to make your presentation for Rwanda. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm just going to give you a synopsis of the journey into civil registration and modernization of CRVS system in Rwanda. It started by making a CRVS assessment, whereby we were assessing the status so that we could establish the process and the loopholes, what would be improved in the system. Mostly, we will remember that the system by then, 2016, was paper-based. So from the assessment, we made a plan, a strategic plan, a 5-year strategic plan for the improvement of civil registration system. And then we had a feasibility study. From the feasibility study, we had to go through the legal review. And the legal review, because we had found out that with the existing laws by then, it wouldn't be possible for us to improve civil registration systems. So we underwent the system to review the laws such that the laws would allow us have the desired business process for civil registration, moving it from paper-based into a web-based and digital civil registration, and then making sure that it has a component of one-stop center component. The service, we wanted the service to be in a way that wherever an event takes place, that's where it should be registered. So that was not permissible by the existing laws. So we had to undergo the process to review and amend laws such that they would allow us to have one-stop center principle in place in civil registration. So from then, we had started now implementing the strategy, the CRVS strategic plan that ran from 17-18 to 21-22. Now we are in the last year of the strategic plan implementing the process, the CRVS processes. So we then started after the reviewing the laws, then we developed the system, the birth and death registration systems, the modules. We were supposed to develop 9 modules: birth, death, marriage, recognition, divorces, annulment of marriages. There are 9. Adoption, and so on and so forth. There are 9 events. We customized the events, and we register 9 events in Rwanda. So in brief, where we are today is that we have completed 5 modules, and we are now tackling the final 4 modules to have the whole process, to have this all civil registration events digitalized. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Thank you so much, sir. Can I check whether Angola is connected and Senegal? If not, can we ask Mr. Masokwe, Sierra Leone, to make his intervention? Please, can you check whether Mr. Aliyu, Senegal, Dr. Kavukila, or Mr. Masokwe are connected? If not, we can move on to the next session.
Angola is not yet connected, but we can proceed to the next session. Then we could have it afterwards.
Okay, thank you so much. Now we go to the presenters of the leadership part. But before we go on to that, I want to start by running the second poll. Okay, can you complete, how many years have you worked in the civil registration office for? 1 year, 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5, 6 to 8, over 8 years? Please, can you quickly complete that poll 2? Okay, 30 seconds is over. Let's see the results. So more than half of our senior managers and the civil registrars here, the registrar generals have worked for about more than 8 years. So we actually have a wealth of experience, which actually necessitates this workshop where we are saying we have been serving in these capacities for quite a long time. So it is now opportune that we look at change management as an issue which will drive our civil registration forward. So let's proceed to the presentation by Duncan and de Kock. Are they connected, Duncan? Okay, thanks. Duncan, can you go ahead and de Kock?
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear me. So what we'll do is we'll give you an update. This is a presentation by Duncan and myself. My name is Sven de Kock. We've been involved in civil registrations for a number of countries over the last 17 years. Just to give you a bit of a background, we as Fever Tree Consulting were involved in the turnaround of Home Affairs in South Africa, which was a $60 million project over a 3-year period. Just to give you a bit of highlights, we were able to do the turnaround of IDs from 123 weeks down to 2 weeks. So we're now able to do all IDs centrally. We manage all ID identification documents within 2 weeks centrally. We are also able to now do passports, which were done over about a 20-week period. We're now able to do that within 1 week, and we do that all centrally as well. Importantly, we were asked to look at all late registrations of birth. Those of you that are aware of the history of South Africa, many of our citizens did not have birth certificates at the time of 1994 when we moved into democracy. And as a result, we were requested to assist with all late registration of births. And we were able to do this, about 20 million of them, within about a 3-year period, as has been indicated. We've also been involved in 2 other large turnaround projects, one in Namibia, another one which unfortunately is confidential, And then there's a fourth one that we're busy on right now, which is probably going to be the largest registration project on the continent. It's about a $630 million project that we are busy discussing. It's a 5-year project of registration of over 100 million citizens within a particular country. Let me go on to the next slide. Duncan, thank you. So importantly, what I'd like to share with you is how we approach certain large projects. And I think the challenge always is where do you start on a project, and where do we... One of the things we like doing is really doing what we call this 5-week diagnostic study. It's a diagnostic study that we do multiple times. We've probably done them for about 10, 12 different countries. It allows different countries to determine where they are vis-a-vis the registration of various key documents, whether it's IDs, passports, birth, marriage, death certificates, and so on and so forth. It allows them also to determine how big the problem is and to determine the way forward. What we do is we do this over a 5-week period, and just so that you are aware, if you are working with consultants, that should never be charged for. So consultants should never charge for this piece of work, because it is a piece of work that allows people to understand exactly what needs to happen. So importantly, it's a 5-week exercise. We tend to start off with looking at what has been done to date. In many cases, we don't start on a blank piece of paper. We look at all the studies that have been done before. There isn't one country that we've worked in where they haven't done studies or work has already not been done. So we understand what work has already been done, what studies has been done, importantly, what targets have been set. And it's important to understand targets. In many cases, there are unrealistic targets in turnaround times of certain documents, especially passports and IDs, where you are trying to do a turnaround centrally, where you try and ensure from a security point of view that we centralize all development and all printing and all production of IDs, birth, marriage certificates. So it's important that we understand what targets are set, whether it's a 1-day target, a 7-day target, a 14-day target for each of these, because what we then do is we work backwards from there to redesign the processes, the structures, the organization to meet that. We look at all the issues that are there, that are undertaken. So issues could be issues of, they could be labor issues. They could be issues of geography. In many cases, it's easy to distribute these documents, as we all know, to urban areas. In many cases, it's more difficult to make sure that those in the rural areas and the far-flung areas of our countries get access to those documents. And so we have to almost do a dual strategy in terms of urban versus rural. We look at initiatives that have already been undertaken, and then importantly, we look at benchmarks. And benchmarks are looking at other countries. We look at other countries within your region, we look at countries within the continent, and then we look at international benchmarks as well. So it's important that we understand benchmarks, and the benchmarks will determine and guide us in terms of what the outcomes are that we want to achieve in terms of the targets. Then what I want to do is then, sorry, if we can just, there's stuff that I can't see on the right-hand side. I know some people are trying to look at the PowerPoint document. What we then do is we then come into the recommendations, okay? Importantly, on the recommendations, what we then do is say, what are the recommendations that we need to look at, okay? So for that comes from the 1 week. We then look at what the opportunities, and in many cases, opportunities are broken down into about 7 or 8 different areas. There are IT and software systems, especially if we want to do online type of registrations. We need to look at what the IT systems are. Importantly, we need to look at the databases. What are the databases that are there? We need to look at the structures and processes. The processes of how we actually undertake our work, how a particular document or an application goes from an applicant all the way centrally, how a document gets produced and then gets distributed back again. What's important are the policies. In many cases, we are hamstrung in some countries by the policies in terms of how we can do things. The human resources, importantly, how we work, the skill sets that are required, how people work together and how they should work together in teams. As I've indicated, the challenge is around geographic location. In many cases, it's easy to actually produce a project that is urban driven, but it's very difficult to make sure that both those in the urban and rural areas get the same service. And that's important, is that your service level agreements with your citizenry should be both the same for urban and for rural. We then look at distribution channels. How should we distribute? Should we distribute electronically? Should we distribute physically? Should we use the post office? Should we use courier companies and so on and so forth? And then importantly, what are the service offerings? We then make sure that we prioritize these opportunities. We look at resourcing and timing. And the most important thing is who's going to pay for all of this at the end of the day. In many cases, what we're seeing in a lot of countries is public-private partnerships. We're seeing a lot more countries working together with companies like Visa, like with MasterCard and the such, working with private companies in the IT space in terms of working in partnership, because essentially what you've got in many cases in civil registration is an asset. And in many cases, many private companies want to work in partnership with you. Let me go on to the next slide. Thanks, Duncan. So who do you want to work with when you start looking at this? And this is important. There are many companies and there are many individuals and many partners that want to work with you. But these are 6 things that when you are looking at doing a turnaround and you're starting to implement civic registrations, please, these are 6 areas that I ask that you look at when you start working with partners. One is experience in turnarounds. You need to make sure that the organizations that you work with understand what a large turnaround is all about. Those that have only worked in small projects will find it difficult. We work in large projects upwards of 200, 300 consultants. Importantly, make sure that there are tangible results. What is important is that when you set targets, as has been indicated, as I said, on the South African project, we indicated that at that stage when we started that a turnaround time for an ID document was 123 weeks. We said we would do it in 2 weeks within a 3-year period. Those are what are called tangible results. And if those tangible results are not met, you should not pay your partner. Experiencing and managing deliverable-based contracts. It's exactly what I've been talking about now. Make sure you understand what your targets are, your deliverables are, and ensure that your partners are making sure that they meet those deliverables. Do not pay your partners if they do not meet deliverables. Experienced resources. In many cases, a lot of consulting companies and partners will talk about being able to work in a civil registration environment. Civil registration is a very, very unique environment. If you do not understand registrations of, like I said, IDs, passports, birth, marriage, death certificates, and how they operate, and the intricacies of how they operate, it is difficult to teach consultants or partners how to do that from any other sector. Make sure that they've got public sector experience, and I'm going to talk about that as well. In many cases, make sure that people understand how to work with government and civil institutions. Why I say that is that because civil institutions and governments have different objectives in terms of private sector. Private sectors are different, has mainly got what is called, as you all know, is a profit motive in terms of how they operate. Public sector experience is all about making sure that you're doing good for your country, that you're doing good for the economy, that you're doing good for the civil registrations, that you're doing good for the citizens of the country. And most importantly, the last one is making sure that when you leave or when you're working, that there is skills transfer. In many cases, you've heard of institutions where things have happened, changes have made. We get it a lot in South Africa, large swathes of consultants coming in, making the change, but as soon as they leave, we go back to the old way of doing things. Make sure that there is proper and lasting skills transfer. And one of the things that we're very proud of here in South Africa is that the skills transfer is clear. Like I said, the 123 weeks that we take to do an ID went down to 14 days. It now sticks. That is an indication of skills transfer. Next one. Okay, so importantly, what is it that you as a leadership should learn from a turnaround? And these are things that we have learned while working. When people work, and I'm going to go into various categories like philosophy, people, management, and please bear with me, they're quite hard-hitting comments in certain circumstances. When organizations start working in the public sector or with government, there is a perception that government employees are lazy, corrupt, or inept. This is not true. And we have found that by working closely with and creating partnerships with, all right, individuals, all people, all right, want to go to work, want to be led. The whole organization must understand the mandate of the organization. What I mean by that is understand what it is that you're trying to achieve. If only half of you are going in one direction, the other half will go in a completely different direction and outwit you completely. Understand where individuals fit in within the organization. Understand that the person at the lowest end of the organization understands exactly in the process that they are doing, whether they are producing an ID, whether they're fitting a photograph to an ID book, whether they are merely putting plastic on top of something, that they know where they are. And importantly, make sure it's customer-driven focus. It is something that we in government don't necessarily attune to, but we are a customer-focused organization. What is important is that civil registration makes sure that the citizen gets the documents that they receive, and they are our customers. From a people point of view, understand what motivates individuals. Pride, competition, recognition, and acknowledgement. We can't always pay government employees what people get paid in the private sector. But it is important that you understand what motivates them, the pride in doing their work, the competition between various areas, whether it's one region competing against another region in terms of how we actually produce, the quality, the efficiency. Working in teams versus individuals. In many cases, we are very good at working as individuals. What we try and do is make sure that you work in teams. So we know that if person A or person B is sick or is on leave, it doesn't stop the process. The process continues. The organization doesn't stop. The process of delivering documents does not stop because certain people are sick or on leave. And what is important is that everybody wants to be managed and supervised. What we find is that people want to know what are their goals, what is it that they need to achieve, why should they be achieving, and giving them the support. From a management point of view, what we found out in many cases on these projects, civil registration projects, is that you need to empower. We do not, and we are very loath to actually empower junior employees. Let them make the decisions. When something is going wrong, ensure that they have been empowered to fix things. Coach them. Don't tell them how to work. Do not falter. And what I mean by doing that is that we've worked, as I said, and I use a South African example. They've been working, there have been people that have been working in that organization, Home Affairs, for over 30 years. And when we spoke to them, they said, but this is the way that we've always done it. There is no better way. We know the better way. And when you show it to them and you design it with them, and you do joint designs and you jointly implement, I cannot tell you the joy on their faces that they see when they see that there is a better way of doing things. Importantly is the last point, make sure that you prioritize. You cannot fix everything. In many cases, there are 100 things that are broken, but it's really the top 10% or the top 20%. If you fix those 20% things, the others will fall into place later on. You cannot fix everything all at the same time. Thanks, Duncan. And I'm going to go on to tools now. Keep the environment simple, visible, and easy to understand. What I mean by that, and Duncan will talk about that just now, is make your results visible. Make sure that people can see the results that you're doing. Do not try and put all the results in an IT system. Sometimes we try and over-engineer in an IT system. In many cases, and I can tell you now, we could get down from that 123 weeks down to 2 weeks with no new IT systems. We just re-engineered the processes, re-looked at the structures, redesigned the way people work, empowered people, made people know what they were doing and where they fitted in, made sure that people worked in teams. We did that all alone without no new IT system. It is possible to get significant improvements in efficiency and effectiveness without new IT systems. You can't manage if you can't measure. You've heard this many, many times. If you don't measure, how do you manage? And it's important that you manage every single step of the process. On that ID process, we had 80 steps in that ID process. We managed every single one of those 80 steps, and we understood exactly where the bottlenecks were and what could be wrong. And as I said, don't use the IT system if you don't have to. All right. In many cases, use it as a support, as an enabler, but don't use it as a driver to your changes. In your environment, keep it neat and clean. In many cases, you'll find your offices have got piles of applications that haven't been addressed yet, or piles of documents, be it passports, birth, marriage, death certificates, that haven't been collected yet. Make sure it's clean, neat, and well organized. Make measurements visible. Make sure that you understand, you can see straight away on a board, where are we at? How's our production happening? How many inputs did we get? How many applications did we get? How many did we produce? Importantly, empower to fix and improve. And please make sure that you empower. And then the last one that I want to talk about before I hand over to Duncan is communicate. Do not be scared to communicate successes. Successes is what is the brand about your organization. Communicate internally wide about how well you are doing, how you are improving, how things have improved. Communicate to the external world, to your citizens, to your country on how things have improved. And then importantly, communicate bottlenecks and failures, and then manage accordingly. As much as there are good news story, make sure that you also understand where the bottlenecks and the failures are. So without further ado, I'm going to now hand over to Duncan.
Thank you, Sven. Good day, colleagues. Today, I'm going to drill down into some of the methodology that we have used in the past to actually take the implementation down to a very practical level. As many of the colleagues have said before, how we reach out and touch the individual citizen, the actual customer. And much of the change where it really touches or tangible happens in the front offices around your different provinces around the region. So we developed what we call the 7 dimensions for completing a successful front office rollout. And this was developed in 2010, 2011 with our experience with the Department of Home Affairs in South Africa. We first developed it based on process improvement and behavioral change and how you embed that behavioral change. We piloted this initial dimensions in Gauteng and also in the Free State. And over the duration of the turnaround, we nuanced it and actually improved it throughout. I think the most key point from the slide is that it's always directed towards the customer. So it's designed about improving the customer experience for the clients. The model itself consists of 7 dimensions, starting at layout and cleanliness, going through to client information and signage, client flow and capacity, business processes, management processes, admin processes, and customer care. I will briefly touch on each one and go through the key components of each. So component number 1, layout and cleanliness. And really the objective here is to improve the overall client perception of cleanliness while also improving the working conditions for your staff. One need only think that when you walk into an office that's clean, neat, and organized, as a customer, you already feel confident that your complaint or your problem can be solved by this office or the people working within it. So clean, neat, and organized plays a large part in really keeping the customer satisfied and less frustrated. At the same time, and just as importantly, it creates an environment where your officials want to come to work. They want to be seen and associated with a clean, neat, and organized workspace. What we've noticed is that once we do this actual layout and cleanliness module, people become more purposeful, become more organized. more efficient in the way they operate. So this has multiple benefits for both customer and the official. Really what we're trying to achieve in this state is we come in and over a period of a week to 2 weeks, we clean the office. We take folders and files and we open cabinets and we create order where there is chaos. Where you see dirty walls, old posters stuck on doors, we clean them off to make sure it looks neat and clean. We then work with the cleaners and the office management and establish a front office cleaning plan. Who does what and when? So now we know we're working with the actual cleaners in the office and they know what must be done on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, by when. And this is in turn checked by the actual staff at the office itself. So creating clean, longer lasting and sustainable cleanliness in the office has multiple benefits, as I said, for both customer and your own official staff working within the area. Secondly, I'd like to talk about client information and signage. The objective here is really to ensure that the services that are offered in the office are clearly labeled and that information is posted to assist with the application process, queuing and client queries. One of the first things you do in a front office turnaround is you conduct a customer survey series of interviews. And this is literally interviewing customers standing in queues outside your offices. And one of the things you'll realize very quickly is you get an understanding of why people are in the office. Our customer survey indicated to us, for example, that over 50% of people queuing in an office are only looking for information. That's all they want. They don't want to submit actual documents. They're just looking for information. That's 50% of your queue. We also understand that approximately 40% of your customers standing in the queue had the wrong or incomplete documents. So you have a large queue developing of people that don't need to be there or have the wrong documents. So all that this does is it adds time to the process and the queues become longer and longer and longer and the frustration increases. We also found out that approximately 25% of people in the queues are actually in the wrong queue. So you go and do your analysis and you say, you are in the wrong queue, sir. Please come this way. The frustration level in your customers is unbelievable. Many of them come from long distances and pay large sums of money just to take one day out to go and turn into your home affairs to register a birth or death or a marriage. So queuing in the actual offices itself is a big part of that process. What we determine and what we use is client information and signage as a key enabler and passing over information. External signage is implemented outside of the front office. So you never have to get into a queue to find out information. The information is all outside, printed in big boards that are weatherproof. If need be, these boards are also printed in the language of the region to enable a swift communication and clear understanding. When you get inside the office, you will see that we also implemented internal signage. And these are really to say where you should queue, what steps you should take, which kiosks are open, which ones are closed. We also found what works very well here is to have a floor walker that will greet you at the front and just check that you have the right documents and potentially pass or show you into the right queue. So really client information and signage is about making sure the right information is in your customer's hands at the right time. So they bring the correct documents, all of them, to the office once, stand in the right queue, and are helped correctly via the service offered. This is a key point to remember in a front office turnaround and improving the customer experience. The third dimension, client flow and capacity, what we're really looking at here is to optimize the client flow for key services offered by a center. What we try to do is minimize the physical distance you have to travel throughout the office itself and also reduce the number of handoff points. What you do is you physically go and map out how people proceed through an office. And this starts really with queuing outside. And you'll see on the image on the left-hand side, the red dot is literally us following each and every customer into our offices and seeing where does their journey take them. And very quickly, what you're able to determine is any unused space in your office, and also very quickly where the bottlenecks exist. So you actually map this out and very clearly, where are the areas that I don't use and where are the areas that are used too much. It also enables you to have a larger control of the space inside your office by directing them or redirecting them in a more efficient manner. What we saw is that many of the actual clients need to go into the back of the offices and they are therefore exposing themselves to confidential documents. What you really want to make sure is that all of your processes are dealt with at the front office or the front desk. So really this opportunity allows you to redirect client flow to also improve security too. What we notice especially is for large volume activities, birth, marriage, death certificates, potentially ID pickups, is that you want to have express queues for those processes that have large volumes and keep those processes very separate from the remaining processes too. So ultimately what you want to do is have a swift and even flow of customers coming into your office where they have the right queues, they're standing in the right areas. The flow in the office is such that they don't bottleneck, they don't disturb the flow of other processes. You don't find yourself chopping and crossing over lanes either. The fourth dimension I'd like to speak about is the business process. And really from the previous work done on the business process re-engineering framework, which I must comment on or complement, is we do a very similar process within business processes. Literally what we do is we do business process re-engineering. So looking at the as is, to be, what is the gap, and then what are the interventions to close that gap. But as Sven said earlier on, you can't do everything. You need to prioritize. So you need to take the full list of applicable services and understand which ones are the most important and prioritize those. For us, it was IDs, birth, marriage, and death, together with, at some stage, passports. But birth, marriage, death certainly was a key indication or key process that needed to be improved. What you ultimately want to try and do is, once you've updated or improved the process, you really need to follow the framework in a consistent manner. But what we found has the greatest results is if you direct the business improvement into three areas. What you really want to do firstly is improve the quality of the documents coming through. There are various theories, theory of constraints, lean manufacturing, Toyota principles. It all comes down into how you qualify work. And if you have to redo something, that is identified as waste. And when you have poor document quality coming through, often you have to reprocess that same document. Each time someone fills or comes into the queue that hasn't got the right documents, it's potentially an hour and a half wasted from their time. It's 10 minutes wasted from your time. It all adds up. So what you want to do is focus initiatives around improving the quality all the way from the very first time a person touches the document. You also then want to start saying, well, once you've improved the quality of the documents coming through, birth, marriage, death, how do you increase the speed at which they come through? How do you process more within the same amount of time? And then thirdly, access to information. How do we improve the access to information? So that also improves the overall quality, which improves the speed. Those are three key focus areas for any business process improvement within the civil registration environment. One key practical advice I'd like to share with you is what we call a DILO. It's a technique we use called Day in Life of. And what we like to do is we like to physically walk through the document from its inception up the outside areas, and we literally walk the flow of that document from station to station, and we ask what happens here, is it important, is it necessary, can we do this or not? So the dilos are the groundwork done for any process improvement within this area too. I'd now like to move on to management processes, and this is a key element of any lasting change or any improvement to the way of working, especially in terms of change management. And really this becomes the building block for a culture of performance. With management process, you look to do two things. Firstly, you start having production meetings. What you try to do here is you focus members or officials' focus or attention on production. What did you produce? How much did you produce? Did you have any challenges? What did you do to rectify that? So making production visible, and I'll take you through some of the boards that Sven alluded to a little bit later. But really making production at the heart of any one of your departments. Then from the daily production meeting, it flows up into a daily management meeting. And this really is where you have supervisors that engage with each other and office management. What you do here is you share production figures that are consolidated across the office. You also look at backlogs, work in progress. And as a management team, you put together what are the issues and challenges requiring immediate assistance and who does so. So really it's about focusing on production figures. What were the numbers telling us? And then how do you convey that information up into management so it becomes action? You will see in the slide in front of us, on the left-hand side, and Sven spoke about this, not needing an IT system, is literally we print out on these big plastic boards, 3 types of boards. The first board is a daily attendance tracker. You have the officials listed from top to bottom. Are they present? Yes or no? Were they late? Were they tardy? Did they give reasons for not attending? And really what it is here is you're making sure that the right people are at the office at the right time to start the day so that they understand what the issues were, what the production figures are looking like, and what the key issues are for the day. You then look at the daily production activity tracker, and it varies per, for the various KPIs for birth, marriage, death, passports and ID as well. You have KPIs that are specific to them. And really what you're doing is you're signing individual performance to say, okay, who was the top performer from yesterday? And really making an issue to say, well done. How did you do it? What was your secret? Share your learnings with us. And then the third production board we use is the issue and action tracker. And really what you want to do is make issues visible to management. And you want to actually project, or should I say problem solve this as a team. So you make the issues visible and you problem solve them. And then you come back to that board the very next day to say, did you, person X, complete the action Y to fix the issue Z? And on the right-hand side, what you have here is partnering with the officials. You really want in the first 2 weeks to expose the officials to this way of tracking. And then you hand the tracking and the filling of the boards and the running of the meetings over to the officials. It becomes their job to do and no one else. And that's really how you embed the culture of change on production and issues of management with the officials from a grassroots level all the way down, all the way up to the top. And in these sessions, you learn as a group. You make mistakes, but rather make mistakes as a group and as a team at a very low level in the comfort and safety of your office. Rather do that and ask the questions and learn together. Thirdly, and this is really about summarizing the information from all your outside offices and making it available to management at a senior level. What we used is a simple version of Excel to capture everyday activities and the production figures from the various offices. It is a very simple tool to use. And at the end of the day, the Excel tool is emailed to an email address and it's copied and pasted into an overall file. And within 10 minutes, you have literally the tracking statistics for all of your outside offices, from birth, marriage, death, all the way through to ID. And with it, you track key performance indicators of interest to us with birth section, late registration of birth applications, those that were captured, those that were issued. What does your collections look like from a death section? The same, how many deaths were registered? What are the death issues? percentage death registration captured, and so forth. And that really becomes the lifeblood and the conversation piece through improvement of your actual production figures. Once again, focusing on quality, speed, and information. Then moving on to the sixth dimension, we're looking at admin processes, and the objective here is to improve key administration processes within the office. And that really comes down to basic filing of documents and speeding up of collections at the counters. What we found here is what you really want to have is a replicated functioning desk. So when a customer gets to the desk, each desk looks exactly the same and functions the same way. All the forms are in the same place, all the stationery is in the right place. So everything, you have everything that you need, nothing more, nothing less, and everything has its own place and it's consistent across the board. So if an official has to take over a birth section and then moves across to the death section, the forms are in the same place, the documents are in the same place. So there's no, should I say, hiccup or traction lost from changing officials. It's important that you have neat and tidy office areas. It reduces the time that it takes for the official to look for key documents. Ergo, it reduces the time the customer has waiting. You also start having accountability. So once you leave your desk, you're accountable to make sure that you leave the desk in the same fashion that you received it in. Neat, clean, and organized with the right amount of sufficient stationery. A key learning that we had and we implemented is what we call a duty, a standby, and language register or roster. On this roster, it states who is for that week manning what station. If that person, for whatever reason, cannot make it on time, they have to call in sick, who is the stand-in official that needs to take over that position. It's on a roster, it's clear, everyone knows. And then language. Sometimes what we found is that a customer requires help in a language that the official does not speak. What they do is they go to the language roster and see who on duty can speak that language. And you can go directly to that person and say, please, sir, we need you to please go across to a death registration. There's a customer that requires help in this language. So that really makes sure that you're not running around trying to find forms, trying to find stationery, fill things in, or be able to help the person. So admin process is key and able to manage the attendance, speed up documents and collections as well from the counters. Number 7, we speak to customer care. And this is really it sums up and brings everything nicely together for helping, or should I say, a front office turnaround to improve the value of service of the customer. I iterated earlier that it starts with a customer survey. And literally what you do is you go and you interview the people standing in the queue and you get a whole host of information. The nationalities, where do they come from, languages that they speak, and that really tells you what services you should be providing within that office. Some of the key findings that we were able to determine from this customer care service is customer dissatisfaction is highest when the actual delivery time exceeds those promised times. What that means is people are prepared to wait, but don't make them wait any longer than what you originally said. So if you told them a process will take 6 weeks, then make sure you manage your process to come in under 6 weeks or on 6 weeks. As soon as it starts going into week 7, week 8, then the customer dissatisfaction increases. So really it's about understanding what they believe is reasonable and what you can do. Literacy is important in making sure that you reach out or have the right information on the signboards we spoke about earlier on, and that is picked up from the customer survey. Once you've done this customer survey, it'll start informing you of what you need to do to improve customer service within that office. And what we did and what we found is very useful is to develop an actual customer care booklet. And what this booklet does is it summarizes the results of the customer survey for that office. It also teaches the officials new techniques, and I'll touch on those a little bit later, to say, well, this is how you handle certain situations and so forth. What we have found is particular use in customer care is what we implemented was a quality of service star. And really it's about how you deliver the right knowledge to the customer at the right time by following key steps and making sure you touch on each one of them. Also, an effective communication diamond is another module we developed. And this is about how you as an official vocalize and how you appear before the customer. Then there's also a procedure that we developed. It's called the customer interaction procedure. And really what this likes to do is to standardize how you engage with the customer. Good morning, good day, madam, sir. Welcome to the office. My name is so forth. How can I be of assistance for you today? And just really starting off that interaction and making sure that it's professional from the start. What we found of particular value is what we developed was a conflict management path. How do you manage conflict with a customer that's irate? What are the things that you can do to de-escalate the tension? What are the things that you can do to make sure that the customer feels that they are being heard and that their problem can be addressed? Now, these toolkits, if you wish, are all contained in the customer care booklet that was developed. And what we do is we actually spend an afternoon training the office officials in each one of these models, role playing each one of them, the various scenarios, and also issuing them with a booklet afterwards to say, this is your customer care booklet and these are how things work. So what I've done now is I've gone through the 7 dimensions of the front office turnaround. And these are very practical steps that you can do as a civil registration team, certainly when you're implementing a turnaround strategy or turnaround initiative. Once again, I say these are very practical and it really drills down into a lot of the detail. I am conscious of time. I think I have about 20 minutes left. William or Sia, please, or even Annette, please step in if I go over time. But I'd like to now share, please, with you 2 key slides, and this comes down to lessons learned. And these are practical aspects, practical things that we found in doing the front office turnaround. And this is something you should really take home with you from a lessons learned, and these are practical aspects. Sven spoke about earlier on about the visible leadership or leadership being visible, specifically from senior management. It's absolutely critical. And it's one of the key areas that John Cotter in his Harvest Business Review reiterates in terms of why turnaround initiatives fail. Senior leadership must set the example. They must believe in, support, and personally drive the change. Sven spoke earlier on about the scoping exercise. What should happen is that this should be led by senior management so that you understand the issues. You also are at the heart of developing and driving the rollout program yourself, and hold your teams accountable for the solutions they develop. Literally go and ask them, does the solution that you develop, is it fit for purpose? Is it sustainable? Can this be rolled out across the organization? Under visible leadership, and its key is that go and see the changes. Don't sit in your office and get the reports. Physically go and see the changes. Leadership must be visible. Weekly site inspections is advised from the home office if you can. Certainly on the further out-of-flung regions, potentially 2 site visits will do the trick. But really you want to be visible. So go down into the passport sections, go down into birth, marriage, and death sections. Go meet the junior managers, ask them to explain what changes they've made. Ask them to explain it to you. It gives them a sense of purpose. It gives them a sense of pride. It gives them an opportunity to interface and get your personal understanding on what they're doing. And it really, what it starts to do is it gives them an opportunity to shine both in front of the junior officials, their peers, and also you as senior management. From a senior management perspective, you can get a very real sense of the change that is taking place. Is it being adopted by your juniors? Is it being rolled out? Is it being understood? Is it being lived by your various juniors? remember that your junior management will emulate your behaviors. So make sure that you are in line and hold yourselves accountable as senior leadership. Don't be afraid to hold each other accountable, but do so in a responsible manner. The second piece of lessons we've learned is piloting the rollout. What you really want to do is you always start at the head office, which is the brain of the operation. It's where senior management decisions are taken. So if you want to improve a process and it calls for a large scale change, the colleague spoke earlier on about having to go through a legal review to make changes first. Well, all the senior leadership is at head office. So you can get them around the table and get them to help you group solve certain challenges. You've got access to all the departments, and really the head office becomes your base of operations, your base of learning. It's where you can test key improvements, test synergies with other departments. If you have a courier service that only looks at birth, marriage, death, can you include it with, for example, passports being couriered between various regions? It could be more beneficial from a cost perspective or time perspective. It just gets you an idea to work with synergies. You get to test your interactions from head office out to your regional offices. And most importantly, you get to build relationships with those people that make the decisions. Once you have piloted the rollout at your head office, you really want to be able to roll it out to your closest regional office. New issues, no matter how thorough you have been, always pop up. So instead of going and rolling out the furthest region, rather roll out at the closest region so you can quickly nip back to head office and resolve these issues, because new issues always pop up. Important in birth, marriage, and death, and Annette is really the force behind this, is you need to engage with also the local offices and hospitals. Hospitals is a key area of birth registration and a key indicator, or should I say, key functionary of improvements. So they are important to include. We like to employ forward teams in advance of your turnaround teams to complete what we call a front office audit. Really, this team goes out to the regions potentially a month, 2 months in advance, and does an audit of the office to understand what are the vacancies, what are the challenges, what are the asset requirements, what are the logistics unique to that office. And then also you get to meet the sustainability team. And the sustainability team I will literally talk about in the next slide. Formal establishment of sustainability teams, and really to the credit Tata Valambola from Namibia. Also, I think BU might be online as well. Together with Annette, we established sustainability teams and drove this very, very hard through civil registration. What happens is the sustainability team is literally your own officials that are identified, and they work directly with the turnaround team. They act as change agents for the process. They become the knowledge repositories of information and custodians of improvement methodologies. What you do is you identify your go-getters, your leaders, those officials who are ambitious in the various local offices, regional offices, hospitals, and you establish them as an additional duty in terms of sustainability. You pair them up with a member of the turnaround team, and they shadow them for the duration of the assignment. So when the inspection team comes to do the inspection to see if the changes have been embedded, they don't talk to the turnaround team, they talk to the sustainability team. They talk to your officials. Your officials take them through the whole process, and they are the ones leading the site inspections. And really what this inhabits is that this embeds any of the changes that you've rolled out. And also it enables you the opportunity to say, well, maybe this guy hasn't quite gotten it. He needs more time. Let's spend more time with him. So it gives you a sense of how well people are adapting and adopting the various improvement processes. I spoke earlier about conducting site inspections. What we like to do over and above your pre-inspections is to do 2 site inspections. One halfway through to get a sense of how well the change is going and to highlight any issues that may be a problem. And then at the end to test that it has been embedded properly. So we really recommend 2 site inspections by the sustainability teams, and that includes your members from head office. To Tate Valambola, Tate Biyu, at Annette's credit, they joined on each one of those site visits and were a large part in determining the success and sustainability of the program. Lastly, I'd like to talk about a culture of shared learning. And this really is key because it speaks to the heart of many of the changes that take place. Often, and what we found in our experience is that junior officials are better, often better equipped to use technology than their senior counterparts. And this causes a lot of tension. At the same time, junior officials are also more accepting of change and can adapt quicker, where the senior officials, to Sven's comments earlier, they've been doing this for 30 years. They don't need any more change. They know what they're doing. This works perfectly. On the other hand, senior officials may resist change. And this is largely because they are set in their ways. And often, and it comes down to culture, I would feel the same, is that they don't want to look bad in front of junior officials. So you have this tension within an office that needs to really be managed correctly. And what you do to manage this tension correctly is that you have to inculcate a system of learning that instilled from top to bottom and is about shared learning. And it starts with the seniors. And really it's about instilling that we are all here to learn. We're all new to this. We all want to try new things, make mistakes, learn from each other, learn from the mistakes you've made, share your learnings and grow as a team. There is no one that's greater or too small from the process. Everyone needs to be involved. Everyone's input is important, and we're all here to share, learn, and grow as a team. I'd like to quickly ask if Tate Biyu from Namibia is on the call. I did see him earlier on. William, with your permission, am I able to ask Biyu to comment?
Yeah, sure. Duncan, you're welcome. Actually, I was going to call him up to give an intervention on their experience in Namibia.
Okay, good, William. You and I in step.
Okay, go ahead and call him to come.
Tate Biyu, are you online? Can you hear us? I did send him a message earlier on. William, I've gone through the list of participants. I don't see B online anymore, but he was at the beginning of the call. I'm not too sure if we can get him back potentially, but
okay,
I would love to hear from him. Yeah.
Okay, we'll have him make the intervention when he connects. I think we'll still have time for him.
Okay, William, I've got one last slide, but I don't want to detract too much from the discussion that we've had so far, or should I say from the presentation. But really it's a high-level presentation on change management, but it's a one slide that it's got some key points in, but really it's about, if you'd like me to touch on that or not, it's fairly self-explanatory.
Okay, no, can you try to do it in a minute or two?
I always like a challenge from William, so thank you very much. Colleagues, this is a presentation that's really based on work by a person called John Cotter, and in his book Leading Change. I would highly recommend you get this book and go through it. But really, 8 of the most common errors made during any change initiative, and the first one speaks to allowing too much complacency. And what this really comes down to is, without a sense of urgency, people won't take any extra effort that is essential. They won't make any needed sacrifices to make the change. And really what we'd like to do is use the scoping exercise that Sven spoke about earlier on to sketch the burning platform, to actually say, this is an honest look at where we are, and these are the challenges, and this is the reason we need to change. You really want to make sure that this burning platform is upfront and everyone knows exactly what the situation is, specifically the senior management. So don't allow too much complacency. Make sure you sketch the burning platform. Secondly, is failure to create a sufficiently powerful guiding coalition. And really what this speaks to is about having strong leadership, and it's leadership that is shared across the board, and it's required to overcome any major change. Often it fails unless the head of the organization is an active supporter. And at the same time, you need elements such as, for example, divisional managers, heads of departments, together with, supply, or should I say, subject matter experts, all pulling together in the same direction, and all encompassing and following the leadership. It's got to be large, it's got to be broad, and it's got to bind leaders to action. Thirdly is underestimating the power of vision. And it comes down to this: when you cannot describe the vision driving your change initiative in 5 minutes or less, and get a reaction that signifies both understanding and interest, you are in trouble. So you literally need to be able to very succinctly, what is the issue, what needs to be done, who needs to do it, and by when. And then being able to communicate that vision and to senior members, junior members within 5 minutes. And often, I think in the private sector, they call it an elevator pitch, but really it's about communicating this rapidly and very quickly. And then fifthly, it's about permitting obstacles to block new vision. Whenever people, often people fail when they think they cannot do this. The obstacles are too large. We haven't done this at all. We've done this for the last 30 years this way. Do not let those obstacles block any new vision. The piece I always like to ask is, how do you eat an elephant? Everyone says to me, piece by piece. And that is the right answer. But really what you want to be able to do is break that down further to say, which piece of the element do we eat first? How do we make it more palatable? Can we share any of this out? Can 2 or more people be eating the elephant at the same time? Let's think of ways to do this that are outside the box. And then we're now to the 6th element of why change initiatives fail is failure to purposefully create short-term wins. What you really need to be able to do is to say and purposefully create short-term wins, and that's with compelling evidence within the first 6 to 18 months of any journey. You don't want to stumble across a short-term win and then claim it as your own. You want to build them into the process to say, these are the short-term wins. We want to get here, 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 and here, and really strive to get them. One of the short-term wins that really gets us moving and going is, if you refer back to the 7 dimensions, is the layout and cleanliness. Nothing signals change to someone when they come into an office after 5 years of it being dilapidated, broken down, dark, dirty, and seeing a clean, clear, uncluttered, organized office. That's a short-term win. People can see change. 7th is declaring victory too soon. Don't prematurely have the victory parade to say, we've succeeded and so forth. Certainly, by all means, convey your successes, but also make sure that they are long-lasting, and that you have them for 6, 18 months and further down the line, and celebrating them accordingly. You've got to create a powerful association for division. Okay. Lastly, William, I'm going to touch on the last piece, and this really is about failing to anchor your change initiatives firmly in corporate culture. There's a saying from any MBA school is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Really what you want to make sure is that in the final analysis, change only sticks when it becomes the way we do things around here, when it seeps into the very bloodstream of the work unit or corporate body. And that's really what you want to strive towards. is really having it rooted within the organization, within people. It's the way people eat, sleep, and breathe. So put alternatively, the 8-stage process of creating major change. Establish a sense of urgency, create the guiding coalition, develop a vision and a strategy, communicate the changed vision, empowering broad-based action, generate short-term wins, consolidate gains, and producing more change, and then anchoring new approaches in the structure. That is how you create, or should I say, change management, and from Leading Change, the work from John Cotter. William, that leads me to the end of my presentation. I see I'm just on minute 40, which was, I think, what your presentation asked for.
Thank you so much, Duncan. I mean, I really enjoyed your presentation. I hope all the colleagues, the RGs, their senior managers, you really enjoyed it the same way. I have actually learned quite a number of things, even in actually managing my section here. There are certain things which I have learned I can do better. Can I call Mr. Shikonko? If I can see he's connected, but he's muted. While we are preparing for that, please, can you put your cameras on so that we can get a group picture, please? For about a minute, just put your camera on so that the technicians can get a group photo. Mr. Shikongo, can you try to unmute yourself and make your intervention? While we are waiting for you, we'll try to get a group photo. Please, can you switch on? I still see Bunek, your camera is off. Can you translate? I think it's the Francophone where their cameras are off. Okay, are we done with the photo, group photo?
It never, everybody, we need the operators to show everybody's pictures because people who's unmuted, pictures goes up. So operator, can you just make sure that everybody's unmuted so we can get everybody, we get a picture?
Yeah, how do you what about participation again?
Okay, William, I think we can just move on. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for your photos. Now, we will run poll 3 just for 30 seconds, please. Can you bring poll 3 before we move to the Q&A? So here is poll 3. What do you do to become a better leader? We have actually you need to choose one.
Read books and articles. Listen to interviews. Take leadership courses. Hey. Listen to feedback. Listen to feedback. Take leadership courses. Listen to interviews. Read books and articles. What do you do to become a better lead?
10 more seconds.
Listen to feedback.
Okay, can we have the result?
Listen to feedback.
Okay, so the most dominant reason is to listen to feedback. Take leadership courses is the second one, then followed by listen to interviews of successful leaders, then followed by read books and articles. Luckily for other, it's the smallest 3%. So thank you for that. Let's move on now to the question and answer session. For those participants, if you have a question, you can either, raise your hand, or you can put the question in the chat box. We'll be monitoring both. If you need to contribute or get any clarity from what Sven and Duncan presented, please, you are welcome to ask the questions now. I can see Kabole. Kabole, can you unmute yourself? Please make sure your intervention is very short. Kabole?
Oui. Yeah.
Okay.
Bonjour,
Madam,
c'est maître. Yes, it's madame.
go ahead.
Yes,
Not
it is,
Mr., it's
madam.
madame.
It's not Mr., it's madam.
Okay, go ahead, madam.
Hello, everyone. Maître Kabole. I am the registrar, expert legal officer in the Department of Health. My question on the presentation that was just made is simply this. We really need an independent registrar for all of this to happen, given all these steps, given all these processes. It is important to have a registrar department that is independent, autonomous. The interpreter apologizes. The sound is cutting in and out. So that is really the condition sine qua non. Otherwise, it can really create issues.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Kabore. Can we have another question, possibly in the chat box? None. Duncan, can you respond to Ms. Kabore if you had a question?
I think, William, for a question on that nature, I would like to please refer to Sven. He'd be in a better position to give an answer, if that be okay.
That's fine. Sven, can you answer? It's a very important question, actually.
Okay, sorry, what was the question? I only heard it in French. My apologies.
Okay, can anyone repeat the question, Mr. Kabole, can you repeat the question? Sven, can you go to the interpretation and choose English?
Let me just hang on. Give me 2 seconds. Hang on. Where do I see that?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, Ms. Kabole.
Ms. Kaboli. Yes, yes. Yes, I can repeat my question. Thank you. So let me introduce myself. Maître Clarisse Cabolet. I'm the legal officer in the Department of Health. My question had to do with the presentation that we just heard. Apparently, given the different processes that were introduced, it's as though to try and make that change or start to make that change, we need a registrar that is autonomous and especially independent from an administrative point of view. So I wanted to know, is it when and only when the registrar is independent that we can achieve results? Or can we achieve results for cases like ours, where the registrar depends on the Secretary of State Department? Can we start to see that change when the registrar is not independent and hopefully improve service? Thank you.
Okay.
Sven.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got it.
Okay, excellent.
Good. Okay. So the changes that are required are administrative changes and operational changes. They are not policy changes. So all changes that were discussed, either by myself and in particular Duncan, have got nothing to do with the independence of the registrar. What needs to happen for example, let me give you an example with birth registration. Birth registration happens independently within various hospitals and various clinics. What needed to happen for birth registration to happen in hospitals and clinics was to ensure that there was a memorandum of understanding and an agreement between the, let's call it Department of Home Affairs, which is the Ministry of Interior, and the Department and Ministry of Health. An SLA and an agreement was done between the two of them that ensured, all right, that registrations of births happened in all hospitals and all clinics within a 24-hour period after the birth of the child. So it's important that there are, one, policies in place, two, that there are agreements in place between various departments, and three, that the operations are put in place. But the operational component, which Duncan was talking about, is completely independent of the policies and the agreements that are in place. But it is important that those are put in place between the different departments and ministries.
Thank you so much, Sven. I think you provide very good clarity, because I guess Ms. Kabole's question definitely was actually looking at a sort of policy issues and, you know, structural issues and so forth. Any other intervention?
Yes.
Please, can you read the intervention, Rosa?
Yes. Just to make a simple clarification about the theory X and the theory Y. It is not Mitzberg, it is rather Hasberg, who is associated with the theory X and the theory Y. I thought you should correct that.
Thank you for correcting me. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. It's accepted. It's noted. Are there any other contribution?
There is a question from Angola.
Yeah, please go ahead.
And he's suggesting that in addition to the activity of maybe country mentors, that ECA should intervene with the country offices so that they can also influence the ministers and some of the directors on some of the issues that have been raised. It's a comment.
Okay, it's a comment. Thank you. Unless Duncan or Sven, you would want to comment on a comment, but we can take it as given. Any other comments or questions? Okay, it seems the presentation by Sven and Duncan, they were very, understandable. There are no issues. But Duncan will be available tomorrow as we go into the second day. Oh, okay.
William, there's a question. There's a question from, there's a question from Mitchell, I think. He's saying that the tools presented seem to be ambitious for effective implementation in the setters. That do not have all the stuff at disposal. What is the feedback? What is the feedback on this? Heidi, do you mind to probably clarify more on this? It's in French, actually.
Yeah, possibly somebody who can do the French translation so that we understand it. I'm also not understanding the question.
All right. Or maybe Mitchell Viano could come in and ask the question, and we can have it from the translators. It's in the chat box.
Please, can you quickly come? We are left with 6 minutes.
Je peux poser la question, s'il vous plaît.
Yes, I can read the question or ask the question. Yes, good morning, everyone.
Presented tools looks very ambitious in terms of all the tables that have to be fixed for the daily management of the. What is the feedback in experiencing the implementations of these tools? This is my question.
Duncan or Sven, can you answer that?
William, this is Duncan speaking. Sorry, the volume's faded in and out. I understand it is, he made a comment that the daily management and production sets ambitious goals and how to necessarily get practical advice on how to do that. Is that correct? Did I get the nuance? Sorry, my apologies first for not quite hearing.
Yeah, I mean, the volume was also going up.
Oui, il s'agit en fait des outils, des tableaux qui ont.
Actually, the question talks about the tools and the charts for following up, client satisfaction, comments. Has this methodology been implemented somewhere? All that was described to us.
William, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, I can quickly answer. Okay, Duncan, because you have shown you were using examples from Namibia and South Africa, but you can.
Yes, thank you, William. Firstly, thank you, sir, for the question. It took a little bit to get to the gist of it. Certainly, in fact, I'd say about 80% of the areas and offices that we implement in don't have the fully required, shall I say, IT systems, staffing, personnel. And that's the stark reality of the situation. But it comes down to really being practical and implementing what you can do. For example, to understand production, how many did you do? We created a form with numbers 1 to 200, and each time you completed something, you'd mark it off. And at the end of the day, you would submit it, and it said you've done 150 forms. Taking that information and then just going up onto a blackboard and writing the information in so it's visible. We really reiterate it's got to be as simple as that to do, to implement. So that's one of the ways we find practically possible to do in these environments of such challenge. I think secondly, and this is, you've really... William, should I continue?
Yeah, please.
I think secondly, what you really try and instill within each one of the officials is the ability that they can make change. Even at their level, think how you can, think what you can do, what can you use at your disposal. And I'll give you an example of improved process and way of thinking without using really a lot of IT, is that within Namibia, a large part of the organizations in the outside offices, they were issued with an SD card. And on it, they would capture the images of people that are applying for various documents. And what we discovered was that they would wait for the SD card to be full before sending it to the head office. Now, what that means is that in areas where the volumes are small, it might take 4 to 5 months for an SD card to become full and then sent to head office. So only 5 months after a person had started to, or had actually initially applied for the document, was any action taken on it. What we said was, well, let's change that scenario. Let's spend the money to get you an additional couple SD cards. And what you do is you send it every week, but registered mail. So it gets registered and it gets sent. And it arrives at the head office, and the head office acknowledges receipt of it, takes the information on it, downloads the information, and then sends it back. So within 2 weeks, that same SD card is back. What you now have is you've improved the process from taking 5 months just to 2 weeks. And it's about adopting those practical ways of working across the board that really makes a difference, that you have to be able to do. And we have, I mean, that's the key thing you need to do. How can we do this? And instill confidence within your people that they can make a difference, they can make a change, albeit very small, it can work. Thank you, William.
Thank you very much for the response. There was an earlier question which I have been asked to respond. What is the difference between a civil register and a national population register? So the civil register is actually a record of the vital events, which is the births, deaths, marriages, adoptions, legitimations, and so forth. A national population register is a record of all living persons in a population. So it's not just includes information on births, it actually includes everybody who is alive at a certain point. So if country X had a population register, I can go into that population register today and say 100 million people were in the population register. So how is a population register actually populated? It is populated by a record of everybody. Then the changes are recorded by the inflows are the births and the outflows are actually the deaths. In populations which you have high migration rates, you can also include inflows being the in-migrants and the outflows being out-migrants. So a population register is real-time information about people who are alive from 0 to 100 plus in terms of age, who are alive at a specific time or point in time. So that's the difference between a civil register and a national population register. I hope I've made that clear. Okay, do we still have any other questions in the chat box? I don't see any hand. Okay, so we can go on to actually conclude the day. Firstly, we'll run poll 4. Can the technicians run poll 4 for me? Please, we have 30 seconds to rate the usefulness of today's session. 5 is the highest and 1 is the lowest. 30 seconds to complete. Fifteen more seconds, we are halfway.
William, someone from Namibia wanted to speak a bit, I think Ivan, to just give a brief in terms of what they've done on office improvement.
Okay. No, let's just finish the poll first. Okay, so 34% say ranked it highest, then 4, 57%. So if we add that would be 1, almost 91% gave it a very high score. So that's very encouraging. Thanks so much for the polls. But before we close, can we just ask Namibia for 1 minute to come in, or 2 to 3 minutes, sorry, to come in and give us a perspective of the turnaround strategy which was used by Sven and Duncan with them. Who is intervening from Namibia, Rosa?
I think it is Isaac, but if he's not, if he's offline, we could proceed with him.
Okay, Isaac.
Yes, good afternoon, colleagues.
Okay,
can you hear
Mr.
me?
Isaac, can you go ahead? We can hear you well.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Isaac, and I'm a Deputy Director for Civil Registration. I joined the Ministry of Home Affairs during the implementation of turnaround strategy, and I'm part of that turnaround strategy when the Dagen and the others, they came here to make some improvements in civil registration. Actually, what he presented as the dimension, they have implemented it here, and we actually put it in place that we are following it, and there is a major noted improvement in terms of turnaround time for ID production. And of course, there are some stages one can check on the system, and within a short period, the person can see that the ID production is at what stage. And of course, they have also indicated that they have improved the signages. Of course, yes, our people or clients at this point in time, they can see everything on the outside and the inside arrangements. Actually, it's a good process that the government has appreciated, and it's a good process that the public has appreciated, actually. And of course, we are now working on the improved service delivery. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Isaac. I mean, that's really very interesting observation from somebody who was actually part of the management during this change management initiatives. So before we break for the day, let me remind you that we'll start at the same time tomorrow. That's 3 o'clock East African time. Southern African time is an hour before that. So in Southern Africa, it will be 2 p.m. In West Africa, that will be +3 hours, so that will be 6 p.m. Central Africa, it's 1 hour behind, so it will also be 2 p.m. So please, if you can join at the same time tomorrow, the link for joining will be the same. So we'll be using the same method of joining the meeting. So with those few comments and instructions, let me say we have enjoyed the presentations for the day. Please, we encourage you to join. If there are any others within your civil registration offices who you think can actually benefit from, or who you would want to be part of these discussions tomorrow, please, can you also make sure they join? I can see there's a hand up, but it's EcoSeat 4, so I can't tell who that is. EcoSeat 4, I can see your hand up.
Le chat.
Yeah, please
It's
go
the
ahead.
chat. I don't know if I need to intervene,
No, your hand is up.
but inaudible.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello. We cannot hear you.
Sorry, William, sorry to intervene. I think he was saying that he can make his intervention tomorrow.
Okay, no, that's fine. You can, either you can put it in the chat box if we still have problems in hearing him, or if internet allows and connection allows, he can actually make an oral presentation, I mean, an oral question. So it's okay, thanks. From the technical team and the coordination team, are there any issues which you want to raise before we close? Anything which I might have forgotten?
No,
William, just the topic for tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow we'll be dealing with resource mobilization, which is the second part of the workshop. Okay, so with those, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. We meet again at the same time. So if you have found it interesting and you think others can benefit, please let them join the next session. Thank you. We meet again tomorrow. Bye.